What's up, world? This our Ifafore.
What's going on, good people? This is our Sheun. Welcome back to the Who Made Y'all Priest podcast, where we talk about our spiritual journeys, our everyday life experiences, and the issues of the time from the perspective of two people who just happen to be priests. 548, what's going on, man?
I feel terrible.
Wow, what's going on with you, man?
I'm deep into this liquid detox, man.
There you go. There you go with some new stuff again, man. And you feel bad. That's because you've been eating them zuzus and wham whams.
Yeah, I had a lot of zuzus and wham whams before I went on this. Hey, man, see, this is when spirituality goes wrong, right? Because my birthday, September 9th.
Right.
So 999 necessary endings for new beginnings. Right. So, I'm feeling extra spiritual,
Right. Right.
I had just got back from San Diego the week before my birthday. And the place where I stayed in, it was like the house had like a yoga studio in there, like a yoga and meditation room, right?
Yeah, nice.
Nice. It was real nice. And then, because the owner, and I was chopping it up with the owner, is a yogi. So they have like a library of all kind of spiritual books, self-help books, and things of that nature, right? So I was really feeling it, right? You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, you know what? My birthday coming up, 9/9. It's time for me to end some things. And, usually when it talks about endings and new beginnings, behavior is a big part of that.
Right.
So people, we try to get, push things off of us onto other people. So it's like, oh, okay, I got to quit my job, or, I got to get out the relationship I'm in, or stop dealing with, this person or that person. No, man. You got to stop acting the way you've been acting. You got to stop thinking the way you've been thinking, speaking the way you've been speaking.
Right, right.
So that, man, I'm like, you know what? I'm entering into my 9th year also in being plant-based, being vegan. So I'm like, you know what? It's time for me to stop with, the Beyond Meat burgers and, all that junk. So, I done had a lifetime of, McDonald's and Whoppers and all that. So I'm going to do a liquid fast.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I'm going to do it the day after my birthday. I'm going to do it for 21 days. But really, I want to go to 30.
Right.
And then slide into raw. And then, the whole process be like 40 days, like Jesus, right? Because I'm on my spiritual game, right? I'm a priest. You know what I'm saying? I'm in this spiritual place, so I'm really feeling myself, man. When I tell you, it is kicking my butt.
Yeah, man. How you feel? You feeling weak and all that type?
Yeah, cause so I've still been going to the gym. So I go to the gym. I done been to the gym a couple of days out of this. So I'm on day 4, and I've been to the gym twice. Funny enough, though, when I go raw, or I've done liquid like 6 days in a row one time with 2 of my partners. And whenever I do raw, or even in instance liquid, because it was all raw, I get stronger. Like in the gym with the weights, I be stronger. The cardio be a little, a little weak, but the weight part be cool. So I also decided I'm gonna do yoga, like this 30-day yoga challenge. Got my sister on it. You know what I'm saying? Because my sister got a stellium in the 6th house. So one of the things it talks about there is doing things like yoga be good for. So I've been really trying to help push her towards, that for her journey. So I was like, let's do a 30-day yoga challenge. I got this book about yoga, and not like a book like, you do downward dog and this is how you do it, but like the spiritual aspect of it that's really touching on the 8 limbs of yoga,
right.
Breath work and all that whole 9, right? So I'm like, I'm on it, right? You know what I'm saying? Necessary endings for new beginnings. Man, day 4, I went to the gym. The gym was cool. You know what I'm saying? Hit the weights. That was good. try to do that yoga. All bad. Man, I ain't know how fit you had to be, like how strong
Oh
even
yeah.
to do yoga.
And you know, many of the muscles that you use to do yoga, you don't really use when you lift weights. Like all of those stabilizer muscles that make you shake like you're finna go to the electric chair.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you have to build those muscles up, man, and that's burning a whole different type of energy than you used to burn.
Yeah, I'm in there and I'm doing it. I'm about 5, 6, 7 minutes into it. Man, we did one too many downward dogs. I said, nah, I'm gonna need a rest day.
Yeah, tap out, huh?
Yeah, I had to tap out. I'm gonna get back in it. Get back on it tomorrow though. So.
Well, I'm glad you're in your spiritual bag, man. I'm glad you're doing the yoga. You're gonna make me break out my spiritual yoga book and try to start back doing yoga and that type of stuff. I am finna get back on my meditation game though. I'm finna get back on that heavy. I get frustrated easily when I feel like I can't meditate. But the metronome helps me out a lot. And I think I need to create a ritual around my meditation just because that's how my mind works. My mind works in processes like this first, this second, this third. That's how my mind works. So I think I'm going to have to create a ritual around my meditation, and I'll be in my spiritual bag too, man. So when you walking around here with your cloak on, man, I want to put mine on too.
Right. Because if we not equally yoked at that point, I don't know what's
We're
gonna
gonna have
happen.
to do separate podcasts.
Right. I'm gonna need us to continuously be equally yoked. So when I got my cloak game on, I need you to have your cloak game on, man.
Right.
Now you my brother, so we ain't gonna never do separate podcasts. I'm just gonna be, you know.
You gonna set your chair up higher. You gonna set your chair up higher. You gonna be the only one talking in parables.
Yeah, while you talking, I'm just gonna close my eyes and sit Indian style. And breathe.
Man, so what we got up? For this episode, man? We continuing with the divine feminine.
Absolutely. We got an Osun priest for y'all this time.
Man.
So it's time for the love. We got to let the love in.
Let your love light shine.
Right. This is the sweetness of life, the dance of life, the joy of life. So
right.
We're about to get into that. So we got a treat for you. So let's just get right into it.
Ashe. We can hear you, Aboro Boye here.
Boy, I thought it wasn't a phone, Robbers. How y'all doing?
We doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me here.
We really appreciate you coming on, taking time out of your busy schedule. We know you got the babies there. You got the babies at school. You're doing a lot. So we appreciate you coming on with us.
Oh, it's an honor to have been invited. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am. As soon as we thought about, man, we need us an Osun priest to come on and talk with us. I told you that you was the first person that we thought about. So
oh, man.
we were able to get you.
That's wonderful.
Absolutely. So, and like I said, them Egun earrings on camera is hurting them.
But we appreciate you coming on. Like I said, we thought about who we wanted to interview as an Osun priest, and you were the first person we thought about. So we're happy that we able to get you on.
Ashe.
Yeah, so we're happy about that.
So Iya, obviously, you're our god sister, so we know you. Please introduce yourself to the family and give them all your names, because Sam hit me and was like, talking about you, and I'm like, who is that? He was like, Iya Alondra. I said, oh, that's her other name.
Yeah, because when I call you by your, I call you Iya Osunfunmike. He was like, who is that?
Well, so I'm Alondra, first and foremost, right? Daughter of Renelle and my father William, who has passed on. But my Ifa name is Iya Osunfunmike, Awojoke, Olomitutu, Ifa Remi, Fayemi.
Yeah, so y'all get all
nobody really knows the Awojoke part because I don't use it much. But when I initiated to Ifa, that was the name given. But Ifa gave me two names. When they tried to close on Awojoke, it was like, no, she needs something else. And so Olomitutu, which is actually a praise name for Osun, ended up being the required name. So yeah, that's
And
how
so
that happened.
I don't know if you know this. I'm almost positive you don't know this. You were the first person that I ever saw greet an Orisha.
Huh?
You hadn't
Really?
you hadn't you hadn't too long came back from Oshogbo. You went to Oshogbo in 18.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you hadn't too long come back from Oshogbo. I was in the Orisha room. I want to say I was talking to Baba, and you came in and greeted Oshun, and I'm trying to listen to Baba, but I'm also trying to watch you to see what you're doing. I'm brand new and trying to see what you're doing. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm with this right here. I like this. So yeah, so you were the very first person that I ever saw greet an Orisha. So just know that we're always watching y'all. We're
I
always watching.
say, I say, I
Yeah.
say.
Here with us, we always talk about our spiritual journeys. So tell us the spiritual journey that led you to the point where you are now as Iya Osunfunmike.
Well, this has been I guess technically a total of 10 years, but if we want to go into it, the short version is in 2005, I heard Sonny Patterson mention the word Orisha. It was after Hurricane Katrina, and she started talking about, all these connections to these things, and I was fascinated. I remember sitting on the floor with rollers in my hair, listening to her like a kindergartner listening to a teacher. And from that point on, my interest was piqued. I was a Christian. I was in the church. I was helping cook and in the choir, and so that was just like, wait, what is that? And so then fast forward, life became really hard. My husband and I found ourselves in a desperate situation. And Brandon said, we need a reading. And I was like a tarot card reading? We gonna get our palms read? What we gonna do? And he said, no, let's call Sonny. And so Sonny said, well, I don't do them at the time. She said, but I know who does. And I was 7 months pregnant with Savali. And Sonny brought us to Baba Femi's house and got a reading. And I have been hooked ever since. Savali will be 12 this year. And I would say that the information started in 2005, but the journey truly started in 2010.
So how was your Christian upbringing or your Christianity before Ifa?
So my childhood was interesting. We're gonna leave it at that. And so like I remember we were at one point Catholic. We were then like Baptist, then non-denominational, then back to Baptist, and then finally around the age of maybe I don't know, maybe like 14, 15, my parents had been divorced for a while, and church was how I really reconnected with my dad. I never lost touch with him, but it was how I found healing in hearing my mother's divorce. And fell in love with historic Second Baptist Church on Ferret and Marengo in New Orleans. And it was home, but it was where I got to see my dad and where I got to just connect with him and where Jesus was real. You couldn't tell me Jesus wasn't real.
Right.
And and I stayed in church all on my own, until I was an adult. But even that evolved. And so when Ifa poked his head around, I was already at a place where there was some questions about, what was next and well, how did that make sense? And so yeah, I was in the church deep.
So you was a part of the kitchen ministry.
Yeah, I was a part of the kitchen ministry. I supported with the homeless ministry. I am tone deaf, but I'm loud, so I can sing. So I was the alto in the choir, and I just love being of service, which is still something that I am now. I love the work. I love being of service, and so that part of my journey has continued.
Right. So how did you meet Sonny? How did that happen?
So Sunny was a poet. She was one of Brandon's mentors a long, long time ago. She had been knowing Brandon since he was about maybe 16 or 17. And so I met them through the poetry scene. And when he and I started dating really quick, he said, I need you to meet two people. I need you to meet Sonny Patterson and Asia Rainey. Those were his big sisters.
Wow.
Those were the nurturers for him. And so those were the first two people I was introduced to as his lady. And it's been it ever since.
Wow. Yeah, and
Yeah.
Sunny, she is amazing too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna have to try to figure out a
Yeah.
way to get her on the podcast
Mm,
also. Yeah, we might
Y'all
have
better
absolutely.
give
to
Sunny like a 2-hour window.
talk. So I've told you before, possibly on several occasions, that you and your husband Babo Batunde, who we will also eventually have on the podcast, are our prayer warriors. The way
Oh,
that you and your husband pray is amazing. Uh, so how
okay.
important is prayer to you and your family?
Whew, it's the foundation for everything. What's interesting is that when Baba and I got together, Baba wasn't, Brandon was never in the church and all that kind of stuff. And so it looks very different for us, right? So coming up in the church, prayer was the key. But
Right.
prayer then was, one of asking for help, asking to be saved, asking, for grace and mercy. And as we grew together, I would say our prayers have changed significantly. And so now it is the most critical point
Mm,
of everything that we do. Not only do we pray for our family, we pray significantly for each other. And I believe that that's what allows us to really grow and elevate as husband and wife, as priests together, as parents over these Ephi children.
mm,
It's the staple for everything that we do. And I can definitely see how our prayers have evolved immensely over the years, especially for me, because I had to change my prayers from that of looking for saving to that of tapping into a power that I already have. And
mm,
Mm,
so the wording and the way in which the prayers leave my tongue, it's almost a demand now, right? Like it's almost a
mm,
commanding of what I need and what I want. Not please Lord help me, Jesus, give me everything I
right.
need. It was no knocking, right, to any other tradition or way of worship. Um, there's a power that comes with this walk of ours. And
Mm,
when you understand that, you can't help but just to watch it evolve into something different than just asking to be saved and saying, no, I need you to give me this because I have this to do.
mm,
mm,
And it's a different thing when you know you have the ashe to save yourself and to
right.
save those around you, and you're not looking for another entity or energy to come in and save.
Was that
So,
something that you all
yeah.
sought out to do?
In terms of
To be as prayerful as you all are?
no, it really was a natural thing for both of us. My husband is a poet. For the
right.
rest of his life. Brandon is a poet and a writer. And so, where the church wasn't his foundation, the power of words always were. Right?
Mm.
This man, that's how Brandon got me. Oh, Batunde caught me with a poem.
Uh-huh.
And so he has always had this beautiful, beautiful ability to craft words in a way that would just captivate an audience. And
Mm.
so for us together, my, I guess, soulful prayers and his eloquent prayers combined was like a beautiful mixture of just what we now know is extremely powerful prayers
Right.
together.
Right.
And so I think we just
Mm.
complemented each other authentically in that way.
Mm.
Absolutely. That's dope. That's dope. I always say he has the cheat code because he's a poet, you know.
Right.
Uh,
I agree. I agree. Sometimes I'm like, babe, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I need to.
He
right.
cheat.
I gotta
He
pull out
cheat.
I need the thesaurus, the dictionary. I'm like, wait, what? We were. Brandon literally just the other day was like, babe, can you hand me that? I don't even know what he called it. Some fancy word for a strainer, and I literally said, what? He was like, the strainer, babe. I was like, man, just say strainer. You don't have to do
Right.
that
Right.
to me.
Right. Right.
But his ability to just, my goodness, let those words fall is just so, it's something that I admire. So, he
Mm.
makes me want to build my vocabulary. Stop
Mm.
using so
Absolutely.
many cuss words.
Right.
Right.
Right. Sometimes the best way to get a point across is a good cuss word, though.
I,
You ain't got to
I'm in agreement.
overcomplicate.
I'm in agreement. I agree 100%.
So, yeah, first of all, I want to thank you. And this is the reason why. So, I had a conversation with a friend of mine about one of our podcast episodes. And through that conversation, I was like, man, we should have an episode about the divine feminine. And I was a little hesitant because, and Oshayun wanted to do it, but I was hesitant because I'm like, every other episode that we've had and every other topic we've discussed it from a place of experience, of a place of we've studied it, we've researched it, the whole nine. So we're coming from a place of wisdom with this conversation. I'm like, with the divine feminine, we trying to figure out what exactly, like, what we gonna talk about, like how we gonna do this. And then it was after our conversation that we had at the conference, and I came to O'Shea and I was like, hey, I'm with the whole thing about the divine feminine, but I think that we could do it where we dedicate an entire season to the divine feminine and take our listeners on a journey that's different from what we did last season, to where we're kind of going through it at the same time many of them are going through it, trying to understand and discover the divine feminine. And as you know, because you were at our initiation, there was talk about, the group of 10 of us that came in, that we all had to kind of get in touch with the divine feminine, had to figure that out, and that's, the reason, at least one of the reasons that, Ifa brought us all together to have that experience, as a group. So you are a priest of Oshun, and Oshun is one of the feminine deities. So for those who don't know anything about Oshun, tell us a little bit about Oshun.
Ooh, happily. You know, I would have to say that I just completed my fourth year as a priest of Oshun. And my understanding of her has evolved. It's still evolving. Many probably hear of Oshun as, the deity who governs the womb and love and sweetness and all of these really nice things, right? And then in some of the other traditions that share in Orisha reverence, you may hear her as being a little too sultry, a little too free, a little, a little too promiscuous, right?
Right.
If I had to define Oshun, I would define her as the energy of all things feminine, as the energy of all things healed, as the energy of all things whole, as the owner of all cool waters, and understanding that water has no enemy. Oshun is so much more than fertility and love and sweetness, right? She is the youngest Orumale. She is the mother of Eshu, the one who birthed Eshu through the Holy Odu of Shetorah. In a text that I read, she was described as the ambassador to Olodumare. And that was because Oshun is present at birth and at death. Her energy is ever present, right? And so she is the mother who brings forth the balance that's required for all things to move forward. If your listeners are familiar with the creation story in Ifa, when those male Orumale and Oshun were sent to create the earth, right? They were like, oh man, like we good. We don't need her. We got this. And
Right.
Oshun said, oh, okay. And they doing all they work, they making all this stuff happen. And then they were like, okay, but wait, where is this goodness that Olodumare spoke of? And when they went back to say, hey, we did everything you said, well, didn't I said, I don't use he for Olodumare. Olodumare is not a masculine or
Absolutely.
feminine energy. But the creator, right, said, what I sent five of y'all. And it was like, well, yeah, I mean, but we got this. Well, you might want to re-examine that, right? And so when you think about the fact that nothing could flourish without her, nothing could happen without her, to me that speaks volumes about what she brings, right? Because in order for anything to move or to manifest, there has to be a source, right? There has to be a fertilization. There has to be a point where that spark, that energy source moves. That is Oshun. This summer at our amazing conference, I had the privilege of being one of the hosts of facilitators, I should say, of the Oshun class, and we talked about how Oshun is she's not just love and sweetness, but she is the energy, she is the power, she is the source of the imagination. So when you think about what the imagination does, nothing can happen without it. There would be no fork, no spoon, no podcast, no text, right? Nothing without there being a seed planted and a thought that grew into something else without the power of the imagination. And so she is this all encompassing source of where we as human beings are able to begin anything, right? To start anything, to be anything,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what side of the light or the dark that you're on. That source still has to exist, and it is Oshun that is the center of that source.
Right. Right.
Wow, that was deep.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right about that imagine. I've always heard Baba talk about Oshun being desire, like it's an imagination. Without that, nothing happens.
Mm-hmm.
And
Hmm.
because, like you said, the thing that we see in the mainstream is kind of like that seductive, sultry, vain image of Oshun. And every woman who thinks they're beautiful, wants to go down that path. Oh, I'm Oshun.
Right.
So, um, glad that you were able to provide some clarity to that for people. So,
So, can I add something to what you just said
sure.
about this image of beauty, right? This external idea of beauty and it's tied to Oshun, in my priestly opinion, is the
I,
most shallow of them all
Mm-hmm.
because Oshun forces you to see yourself.
mm,
Thus, one of her images, which from what I understand, it wasn't the original implement, but it is now one of her representation, is that mirror, the ability to see ourselves. And so, when I've had conversations with people who are, directly from places in Africa, their ideas are different, right? And I just embrace them. I wish that some of the ideas of how Ifa and Orisha has evolved over here were embraced a little bit more, but it's not my argument to have. But that image now, that implement of the mirror is one of, for me, has been one of the most critical because it forces you to see yourself, right? So
absolutely.
whether society deems you beautiful or not, male, female, or in between, if you have not looked within, that external beauty means absolutely nothing. It holds
Right.
no value, right? And so in this other text that I read, it was more from a Lukumi perspective, but it talked about it was a story about how when Oshun was asked by Yemoja to accompany her in going to Cuba, and but they were like, but in order for you to make this journey, you have to change your appearance. Now we as
Mm-hmm.
priests know that Oshun is not a female in that sense, right? Feminine energy, but not a person, not an actual woman, right? But a
Right.
feminine energy. And so the story, of course, just like all of the Portuguese, is to help us as human beings connect to that information. And so in this particular story, Yemoja tells her, but you're gonna have to lighten your skin and you're gonna have to soften your hair and make it longer. And in the story, Oshun is furious. Why? Why do I have to change from my beautiful dark skin? Why do I have to let go of my nappy hair? And Yemoja tells her as she puts beads and combs and shells in her hair that it's because those people over there need to see a reflection of themselves in you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Regardless of what they look like, regardless of what man has told them, they need to see a part of themselves in you. And so for that reason, you must change. And in that story, Oshun agrees, but it wasn't without frustration and feeling like she had to let go of who she really was. All of that to simply say another powerful aspect of Oshun is being able to let go of external images of who people think we are, who we think
Mm-hmm.
we are, and to truly tap into what and who we really are on the inside. And
Right.
so, thus, some of these images of her with this mirror, like it's kind of become a fad now, but it's so much deeper than just, oh, Oshun the beautiful, right? It is so about who are you in here. And
Right.
Right.
so that's one of those aspects of Oshun that definitely has evolved for me over the years as well.
Right.
That's a beautiful story. I read that story. I think that story is in a book called Teachings of the Sanctity of God
Mm-hmm.
by Ochani Lele.
Mm-hmm.
He's a
Okay.
yeah, he's a Lukumi priest of Obatala or maybe Oshun. But yeah, I have a few of his books, and all of the Patakis that he writes
Hmm.
are beautiful stories. Like that
Really?
story.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I need to get
beautiful
that because
story.
that story actually comes out of. I actually have the book right here. Miguel Ramos has an Oshun book. It's on the pathways of Orisha, on the Orisha roads and pathways, and he has an Oshun text where he shares that story. So maybe that's a common story in the Sanctity of Lukumi. But
Mm-hmm.
you have to share those titles with me so I can get some stuff.
Oh yes, most definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
Most definitely.
Oshayun turned me on to that book. The for me, one of the most beautiful parts of what you just now said is the when you said it's more of a Lukumi story. And that's why I love our Elay. Is because, as Baba said, I mean, we practice Isheshe, which is traditional Ifa, but we are, what does he say? We are,
We are untraditional traditionalists.
yes, right.
That
Yeah,
that
I love that. I love that. You know what I'm saying? That we dibble and dabble into different things to enhance our understanding. So,
Usher,
and we're not afraid to do that. So I think that's beautiful.
Usher.
Um, one of the things that you mentioned, like there's different paths, there's different roads of Oshun, and there's different ways that Oshun shows up, as you so eloquently, laid out. How does Oshun show up for you and for your family?
Oshun shows up for me as a source of healing.
Mm,
We step into these experiences and we take on partners and we have kids all while there's so much trauma that lingers behind us, right? And so Oshun shows up for me first and foremost as an agent of healing, as an agent of compassion and understanding. It is through my walk with Oshun that I have learned to forgive, to accept. I have understood the power of protecting my own children and making sure that I model for them, what this means, what this work is about, what this walk is about. Shun shows up as the party for us, right?
Right.
We come into stuff with our Ile, but Obatunde and I have found that, Oshun's walk with me is one about bringing people together, and so and often an energy of togetherness where people can come to physically get fed, spiritually get
Mhm.
fed, and just always a reminder to hold compassion and
mm,
consideration for other people. That is how Oshun shows up. My mother lives right here, also a source of a lot of my trauma, right?
Right.
And so Oshun is like, listen, you're
Right.
gonna get this lesson and you're gonna get this healing and you're gonna get this
Right.
work in while
Right.
it's right here in your face. And I
mm,
truly do not think that I could have done that without my walk and my connection and my
Mhm.
full fledged experience with Oshun.
mm.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Not to mention the reminder for me to hold that for myself, right?
Mm.
Like I would also say she showed up as self reflection. So there
Right.
was a story told to me some years ago that there's an apoteke. I have no idea what Odu it's in, but it's just always stuck with me because it was a a reading that I got some years ago, and so this was the story that was shared in the reading. But there was a story about how Oshun, this river, right, water, and all the people were just like, we need water, for this, we need water for food, we need water to drink, and Oshun is just in the middle of the river, just here here you go, and Oshun gave and gave and gave until she looked around, and the river was barren, cracked up, dried up, and then it was like, wait, wait. Wait a minute, y'all. I need some water back in order for me to keep giving. And that has stuck with me for
Mm,
years to understand that my walk with Oshun is to also maintain compassion, understanding, and a reserve for myself.
mm.
And so she shows up as a form of self reflection for me as well.
Ashe.
That's awesome. You mentioned your daughters. You are the mother of three beautiful daughters.
Um,
How does the energy of Oshun help you with your relationship with your daughter? You mentioned that your own mother is part of some of the trauma that you have.
mhm.
So how does that energy help you with your relationship with your own daughters?
That's a great question. I think oftentimes, it immediately shows up as don't do the same thing, right? Like that was my own thinking. But then Oshun's presence with me shows up as love heals all things, and in
Mm,
all things use sweetness, right? Which is kind of cliche, but it's the absolute truth. And so
Right.
with my daughters, there is such a desire to want to teach them, right? Because I mean, let me clarify. My mother is she's a great person. If you met her, you would love her. You'd be like, oh my God, your mom's so great. And I'd be sitting over there like, mm-hmm. But Oshun has made me realize that our mothers only gave us what they had. My mother
right.
gave me the best that she had, right? Even if in that experience there was trauma. And so for my children, not only am I determined to give them the best that I have, but Oshun forces me to model for them what that looks like, right?
Mm,
Because sometimes, if we turn into our parents, we can be the do as I say, not as I do type of people.
Right.
And
Right.
that was my experience with both parents. Oshun's walk with me says, show them. Do
Mm-hmm.
not just do not just say, you must do. And so I have to be very, very, very mindful of how I react, how I respond, and bring them into that divine feminine walk with me. One of the beautiful things about this tradition is that, we have Odu for our children. And so I can
Mm-hmm.
hear that and I can say, oh, okay. And so as my oldest is in middle school and going through all the motions, right? Oshun is right here all the time saying to me, bring her to me, right? Sit with her. Go get her a piece of chocolate. Take her for a ride. Take her on the walk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have these conversations with her that are going to plant those seeds, right? Seeds that hopefully will grow later for her into this essence of the divine feminine that I can only imagine. And so
Mm-hmm.
Oshun shows up in my relation with my daughters by also making sure that I give them not only what I didn't have, but what I know is going to serve them later. And
Mm-hmm.
so teaching them the prayers, teaching them the practice, but more than that, teaching them this understanding of how to love themselves beyond anything that I could ever offer them. And when I listen to my girls and I watch them, I know that it's working. I know that the work is manifesting. And so that level of just compassion and understanding. And even with my own mother, I have had to I have to model that, right? I have to model it all the time. And so sometimes when the response ends up being one that's confrontational, I immediately hear Oshun remind me, be easy,
Right.
right? They're watching. And so when my mama would be, I'm like, okay, all right, mom. And then it's like, and so my oldest has said to me, well, mama, you don't yell back, you don't fuss back at her. And I tell her because that's my mother. I don't
Right.
have to agree with her. That is my mother.
Mm-hmm.
You must respect your mother. And then she'll be like, okay, yes, ma'am. And so I see now that those little things are moving and being replicated in my children. And so that's it, right? That's it.
Right.
Be the model, be the mother, be the teacher.
Right. Right. It's funny when you said that part about having to respect her because that's your mother. I was thinking because you have kids born and raised in E5, and Naya is like, well, you got to respect me because in the last life I was your mama.
Listen, listen. It is the absolute truth. And so I have to remind her, right? I have to remind her, like in this life, you are not, and I swear, I think she understands. I
Mm-hmm.
swear. The child had homework yesterday and she waited till I got home and she said, well, you said you were going to help me. I said, well, I wanted you to try first. So I'm a teacher. I go into teacher mode. I offer the child a strategy and she tells me, now I don't understand the problem, but I don't see how that's going to work. I said, no, you don't even understand the problem, but you are
Right.
not going to do the strategy because you don't think it's going to work. And I literally had to say to myself, see, this is the moments where you think you my mama still. No,
Right.
Uh-huh.
ma'am.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Right.
ma'am. But yes, it shows up. And so imagine me understanding that and then watch her interact with my mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
My mama in this life
Right.
and my mom in this life, Micah just, and I have to just sit there and listen. And I find the best way I can to say, y'all, listen, this child has iron will. I understand who she is. I understand where she come from. Just
Right.
let me deal with her. But that's not the easiest all the time.
Right.
Right.
Because as
Right.
a child, that's what I would do. I know me, I'd be like, but hold on.
Right. Oh,
Right.
wait till Maverick start talking.
Right.
Uh-huh. That's a
Right.
beautiful thing about our tradition is that we are coming up in a way that we are able to better understand our children, and because Samaya is feisty, like she is. I mean, she real feisty. Like she'll slap me in my face if she's watching her Princess and the Frog or whatever, and I come over there and try to give her a kiss, and she be like,
Uh-uh.
move out the
Right.
way.
Right. I'm busy.
Like move out the way. But I know
Mm-mm.
she has that fiery Shango energy in her. So,
Mhm.
Power.
I'm able to accept that a little bit more than I normally would. So
Mhm.
yeah, I'm
Mm-hmm.
But
trying.
that's the beauty is that you have
Right.
her Odu, you have the understanding of who her Orishas are, and you can use that to work, right? To
Mm,
work it, to work that Ori to help provide her with the guidance. Because like that's it. We know that they have a destiny to fulfill, just like we have a destiny to fulfill. So as a priest of Oshun and Ifa, I feel obligated to take what I know and what I understand and be able to utilize it to help develop my children. Right?
mm,
Now
Absolutely.
they're going to be who they are destined to be. So my goal, and so sometimes that can almost create a little bit of friction, right? Because I know that Savali is a humanitarian. Her numbers say it. Her Odu says that this child is a bleeding heart. She leads with her heart, but she is Obatala Oya's child. Right?
mm,
So that head of hers can go very far. Savali can jump in a rabbit hole and honey, it will keep going. And you'll be like, okay, come back, bring it back, right? She will create scenarios that can be to a detriment to her mental
mm,
health. As a priest of Oshun, I know to go to Oshun and call in sweetness for my child to develop for herself, right?
mm,
For me to help her for me to use what I know and what I have to not change her into who I want her to be, but to
Mm-hmm.
ask for her to receive what she needs to be who she's destined to be, to make her lessons not so harsh. And if they have to be, let her learn it the first time and it not be repeated. So then you take that, you bring in that Ori, you bring in Ifa, and you have such a beautiful mixture of tools, right,
mm.
to be able to work to help provide your children with guidance. We went to the store and I was like, I'm about to get this coconut. I don't know why. I was like, I'm just gonna buy this coconut.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, my soon to be 12-year old had a whole emotional meltdown. Guess what's gonna happen either tonight or tomorrow?
Go get that OE work
with
in.
that
Right.
coconut, right? That I didn't even
Right.
plan on buying. And so I just a part of this walk with Oshun has also been about tapping into my intuition, right?
Mm,
As a woman, Oshun governs that fertility area. Right, she governs that for y'all too, but so as a
Right.
member of the divine feminine, that's it. And so my work with her has also been to learn how to truly tap into that womb energy and
mm,
to follow my intuition. It has just grown exponentially, and so through that, I'm able to not only support myself, not only do my work as a priest, but I'm able to use that to further my connection and with my children. I'm able to use that, as their mother to help bring about the guidance that they need, and so it's such a beautiful process. Sometimes taxing, right? Sometimes taxing, but it's really a beautiful thing. And I understand why these three little girls chose me to be their mother. They
mm,
Absolutely.
required someone who could do this work. That little Zuri of mine coming in all these years later, it
mm.
literally is because she required me to be where I am, who I am, with the understanding that I have. She required that of her father. Otherwise, she wouldn't have come.
Right.
Right, right.
Right.
So it's a beautiful process to see how that moves with my children, especially
Mm,
having all girls.
right.
I couldn't imagine having a boy, honestly. I wanted one with Zuri, and then as a teacher, I watch these little boys, and I'm like, what's happening up here, baby? Help me understand.
Right.
I don't know what all this is. I don't know what it's a whole war happening just at your fingertips, and I don't
Mm,
get it.
right,
Right.
right.
So
Absolutely.
I am a birther of the divine feminine, and it has been one of the most humbling experiences in my life. To have three daughters, it's
I
just a
sure.
beautiful thing.
So, motherhood.
Hmm.
Motherhood and the feminine in general is important to our tradition. How has your thoughts about motherhood and femininity changed since you've come into Ifa and this knowledge of these divine feminine forces?
Whew, it's changed everything. So it's I have shared openly that I have experienced multiple miscarriages.
Mm,
I have three daughters with eight losses in between, and the the walk as a woman with the divine feminine now being a mother, when at one point I didn't think I would ever have any children, has been, man, life changing would be an understatement. To be able to see a physical reflection of you
Mm,
manifest, to be able to have the privilege to nurture and guide and prune the next generation of women is the highest honor that I have absolutely ever experienced in my life. It forces me to be better for myself. It forces me to always be aware of how I treat myself so that my daughters can know how to treat themselves later. As a woman coming out of the church for many years, this idea of, just be submissive, be subservient, do the cooking, do the cleaning, let your husband be the head of the household. I probably came into my relationship with Obatunde the same way. But
Right.
then it evolved into realizing that it was really a partnership. And then it evolved into saying, oh, wait a minute, I kind of run this shit. you know, um, Understanding that I bring forth life,
mm,
not without the support of my husband, of course, but I'm the womb.
mm,
I'm the orchestrator. I'm the conductor. I'm the bearer. That in itself, with all humility, right? With
Right.
all humility, shifts everything.
mhm,
Not in a way of saying, "Oh, well, I'm the conductor of this, so let me manipulate this situation." But I'm the conductor of this, so let me hold myself to a certain level of prestige, so that I can then create a ripple effect to those who are watching.
mm,
My
Right.
husband, my mother, my sister, my nephew, my children, and so the experience has been one that has crafted me into a much better version of me
mm,
because I understand the impact that I have on them.
I sure.
right.
Oshun is water. She is water energy. Again, water has no enemies. Water is emotion. Water controls. And so how I move, right, affects everything. I have had to learn in my walk with Oshun to be the ebb and the flow. I have had to learn how to be the cooling agent. I have had to learn how to be the nurturer. I have had to learn how to be the source. I have had to learn how to give just enough without giving it all.
Mm,
Mm,
I have had to learn to let others have their experience
mm,
instead of just stepping in and washing all their troubles away.
mm,
Um,
mm.
it's an experience, right? And again, I say this with all humility, but Oshun has forced me to know who I am.
I
I
mm,
sure.
know who I am. I know where I come from. I know what I'm here to do. And so my walk with her has been one that's just been like, girl, if you don't do it, I'm
Right.
gonna throw you a lesson that's gonna make you figure out why you need to do it. And
mhm,
so this particular time of even being invited to do this podcast session with you all is probably at the height of my understanding of self, my understanding of the divine feminine and what they truly bring. You
mm,
know what I mean? What this all means and the responsibility that we have. And so, you know, we hold some responsibilities to not only be the source, but to also be the backbone, right? To be the support that also helps to bring to the divine masculine what you all need to be great as well.
right.
Yes.
And that understanding has changed the way I see most things.
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's a
it's
beautiful
it's
thing. That's a
I
beautiful
say
thing.
it is.
It is, and I've almost come to the point where, uh, well, I say I have come to the point where I believe that the woman is God. I this it's there's this. I've started to look at birth very, very different. The ability to bring something from the spirit realm and manifest it here, I look at it differently. But we could talk about that for hours. Then we'll go into
Probably
that.
so.
Yeah, we can talk about that for hours. So this is a question that Fafore and myself have wanted to ask a few priests, and that is, are you a priest in the closet? Are you a priest at work? You are educator. You have children that you teach. Are you using your magic openly? and your capacity as a teacher?
Mm.
Or are you hiding that?
When you say openly, no, I don't typically, just flaunt. It's funny. People be like, "Oh, those beads are so pretty. Oh, they're so nice. You always coordinating, right?" And they just, just kind of move. And so openly, no, because I believe that that's the power of the Awo. That's the power that we hold in everything not being so open. As an educator, as a Black female educator, I find myself in schools with other Christians, with a lot of other Black female Christians, where they become comfortable very quickly, sharing their thoughts and their beliefs. I just kind of stay a bit more mutual, and I just work my stuff on the other side. What's interesting is this particular school year, I moved campuses, and there's a gentleman there, a black older man, who is a minister. He's not like the head church minister, but he's a minister nonetheless. And he
Right.
and I hit it off right away, and we were talking, and we were just talking and talking, and he said, "Are you a minister?" And I giggled. All I could do was giggle. And I said, "Well, I would say to that, not in the sense that you probably would understand, but absolutely I am." And he said, "I knew it because when you talk, it's just a word that drops." And I said, "Well, I say, right?" And so I told him, I was like, I'm a priest. I'm a priest in this beautiful tradition called Ifa. He said, "Well, guess what? It don't matter the tradition. God using you." I said, "Well, I say, brother,
I'll
you know."
say.
I
And
say.
so I carry my priest everything with me everywhere I go. Absolutely. I remember early on, I wouldn't say I shake because I didn't feel like being questioned, But what
Right.
was that you said? I could care less now.
Right.
I just, it evolved, and it's just like I say, and I'll see them look like, "Wait, what did she say?" And
Uh-huh.
we just keep it moving. As an educator, I absolutely use it. I pray over these children. I have a Osun spray that I made that I use. I spray it in the classroom when those kids get on my nerves. I
Mhm.
use it definitely for myself. I call on those ancestors, especially. I call them in. I ask for the educators. I ask for the organizers. I asked for the ones that were great at prioritizing, the ones that were great at facilitating. I called them forward, and I asked Oshun to always keep me filled with that compassion again, because you're dealing with 40 plus little people who come from homes where there's so much happening. So if you don't hold compassion for them, you will not be successful as an educator, right? And
Right.
so I work that on myself all the time, asking for my words to be sweet, asking for me to be in a space with my colleagues to where we can move in unison, right? Because that's also a part of Ocean's energy. When it's turmoil and it's just that tumultuous energy, I ask her to be for me like she was when all the Orumile tried to defeat the village of the women. They all went down there springing with all their weapons, and nobody could win. And Oshun was like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna go. My turn." And literally, she sashayed her way from heaven with a calabash of water and a sway in her hips. And the village of the women couldn't do nothing but abide and obey. And then they worshipped her for many generations after she was gone. And so I asked for that kind of grace. I want
Mm-hmm.
to walk in a room and command it all. I want to
Right.
walk into a classroom and even the adults be like, "Hold on, Miss Brunson's talking." Right. And so I absolutely work that, right? I
Mhm.
work at SHU for that communication piece because our ELA has so many educators, right? We OIDSI International. Obatunde actually does a reading for the educators every
Yeah.
year.
I was
And
present.
yeah, and so we use that, right? Like that's one of those spaces where we, and then whatever the work is that's required for us as educators, we do it to help bring about a successful year. And
Right.
then yeah, sometimes I got to do some of them other rituals to get some of them negative people
Right. Right. Right.
out. You're doing too much, so go over
Right.
there.
Right.
And so yes, I carry what what was shared with me as the whole armor of Oshun with me
Mhm.
every day. I put her on one
Right.
garment, one piece of a piece of steel at a time, and I
Right.
carry all that I am as a priest with me every day, everywhere, no matter what.
I'll
Mm.
say.
Yeah,
I'll say.
Sure.
yeah.
Now, again, so we talked about you being an educator, and aside from dealing with just what I would call kind of the regular things, students, their emotions, parents,
Mm.
things of that nature. Now you got to worry about safety. and school shootings.
Woo.
And I remember it used to be a time where you didn't worry about that in Texas because they carry pistols around here in Texas. But here now it's crept into Texas, and we just had a big school shooting down in was it Uvalde? Is that how you say
Yeah,
it?
and Uvalde.
Uvalde, yeah,
Uvalde. Yeah.
Uvalde.
So being that you are a priest, um, how do you use that to protect not only yourself but your school age children and your students?
That's a big question, Bible, and it's one that actually has been on my mind for quite some time. Um, the summer's been busy, work kind of just got busy, but Bible Obatunde actually just spoke about we're a couple weeks behind on the reading for the educators, and that is a component that I want to make sure we include. If I could put a traveling issue in an Ogun pot at every
Right,
school, man, I
right,
swear I would. But I know that collectively these educators in this elay, the priests and the non-priests, have enough ashe to call in protection over ours. I think it's one of those things where sometimes the mere thought of that of how do we fix this, how do we protect these babies, can be so overwhelming that it just makes you feel lost for words. It makes you feel like, what do I do? I remember leaving work and hearing about Uvalde, and my coworkers were all talking about it, and while they were just talking, my chest tightened. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I didn't know those people, but my
right.
God, if my spirit wasn't completely affected by what those people had gone through, I literally just walked out. I didn't even tell them. I just walked out and I hit those doors and I broke down. You would have thought I had a friend at that school. You would have thought I knew a child. It hurt me like it was my own. I couldn't, it took me a minute to like pull off and head home. And I remember calling Baba and just telling him, and even his expression was just like, "Wait, what?" And so, as of right now, the most that I have is my prayers.
I say.
Um, my goal though is to get an Odu, right, to do the work as a priest, to find out what can we give, right. There's probably not enough roosters I could give to Ogun,
Right, right.
but I do know that the strongest and most powerful prayer you can ever say for someone, or the most powerful and prayer that you can ever say is for someone else. And
Mm,
so, that's what I have right now, right? That is what I have. When the other day we got an email saying wear burgundy and white because Uvalde's going back to school.
Mm,
Wearing burgundy and white wasn't going to do absolutely anything, but I believe in the power of unison and the
mhm,
fact that educators across the state of Texas came together and lifted those people up in thoughts and prayers,
mhm.
moments of silence across campuses. Like, this is where we as a community have to come together. This
Right.
is where those of us who are priests have to get behind the closed doors and make the elbow, whether anybody knows or not,
I
whether
say.
they Christian, Muslim, whatever. We have to just go behind closed doors and do the work, you know.
Mhm,
And we have to know that the work that we're doing is enough, right, to bring about some type of protection and change. And that on the grand scheme of things, there are destinies that have to be played out. And that is where, as a priest, sometimes this hurts, right?
mhm.
Because we can look at the specific school shooting and say, my God, that was tragic, right? But we also know all those babies had a contract.
Right.
We know all of them had a destiny to fulfill, and it's just the way in which it played out is one that no parent wants to ever think about. No
Mhm,
teacher wants to think about what happens if I get shot. We had to do these safety drills, and it's like, well, what do you do? My classroom has a window that's like catty corner. So literally, when you stand there, you can see the whole class. And we literally are practicing, put the little lock in the ground, open the cabinet door, all the students up against the wall, like be quiet. And then people coming around to shake the doors to see if they can see you, to see if they can hear anything. It's 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 something that in my mind, I'm like, my God, is this where we are? But
mhm.
I also, in addition to the prayers for the protection, I'm praying for the minds of these educators who think that the right way to respond is to now load teachers up with a gun. Because the reality is that's not the answer either.
Right.
You watch these videos of these principals, these teachers, these staff who lose their emotional cool and put their hands on the kid. What does that look like when you equip them with a weapon?
Mm.
Right.
You now become the threat. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? And so so I find myself right now, all I have to offer is my prayer. But as a priest, I want to do the work to find out what else can we do, whatever can we make, especially for my children, for your children, you know what I mean? For the children
Absolutely.
of OIDSI, for the children in my family, you know, for the children across the world. There was a situation just today. It was like on the news that at what was it, some Heights High School in
Mm.
the Heights, there was a threat of an active shooter, and they were posting all these videos all over Twitter of the SWAT team busting in classrooms, just trying to see what was going on. And I was just like, my goodness, you know. And so
Right.
yeah, I think that's the most we have right now. But this is where we need to have conversations in our community to bring in that collective ashe. We can't do it by ourselves.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can't do it by ourselves.
Absolutely. And if
That's a big question, fellas. Woo,
yeah, yeah,
that's a
yeah.
big question.
If they do anything at the Elay, I definitely, and I'm sure O'Sheaun, be there as well to lend our off O'Shea. Um,
Ashe,
so,
Ashe.
so shifting gears just slightly, and again, as we talk about motherhood and fertility and things of that nature, we would be remiss if we don't if we don't talk about abortion and Roe v. Wade. So,
Absolutely.
what is what's your feelings on the Roe v. Wade ruling for one, and abortion for two?
So let's talk about it. I'm gonna start by saying there is no simple feeling. So
Gotcha.
yeah, you know, I heard y'all. I listened to the episodes, and y'all two had some real.
We was gonna
Oshayun
get
had
into that.
some real staunch,
Yeah, we gonna
thoughts
get
and
into
feelings. So first, I'm gonna say my personal feelings do not supersede spirit, right?
that.
My personal feelings on the overturning of Roe v. Wade is that it is selfish and heartless. To tell a woman who has been raped or who is conceived through way of incest, I think is just the most terrible thing in the world that she has to bear this child. My God, um, that is not something that anybody who has not been in that situation, and with no disrespect to you, my brothers, that is not something that a man would ever understand, to have this child, this life growing inside of you, knowing that it was put there by force.
Hmm.
That's a crucial thing. All rape is not a forced pin her down and take it. There are rape situations where women just do what they're told out of fear. Ask me how I know. I give thanks that I didn't have to bring forth a child through that situation.
Oh, sure.
Okay. So having been a woman who has been through that, I would never listen to anybody tell me what I couldn't do.
Mm.
Hmm.
Being someone who has worked in mental health, specifically with women in crisis, and seeing what happens to the mind of a woman who has been raped, I would never tell her she can't do what she feels is best for her, right? That's Alondra, Iya Osunfunmike, Awojoke, Olomitutu's personal feelings, right?
Right.
On a spiritual level, it's complicated.
Mm.
In our conference, we had the privilege of having the Bible speak Chief Montana,
Hmm.
and he offered that perspective about there's abortion, there's rape everywhere, right? There's rape in Africa, there's rape in Asia, and he's right. He said, but the spirit has still chosen to come. Take that and accompanying with what you all shared, or I will share on, especially when you spoke about how sex is an act of bringing forth spirit, right?
Mm.
Hmm.
When you think about all of those components, I absolutely believe that there are lives that must come because they're coming to do something bigger. His particular story that he shared at that conference was definitely something that I don't know, kind of rattled me a little bit. Only
I didn't hear it.
because, only because I understood. You know, he shared about this basically this woman who kept this young woman who kept having abortion, and her mother kept coming forward to say, "Well, we need to do a reading. We need to do a reading, right?" So my
Mm-hmm.
first thought to that is, if you think that no life is to be aborted, why do the reading? Right? Like there's no need to cast on that. But clearly there was a reading done on it. And so the reading, though, I think was powerful in that the message that was conveyed was that life needed to come, right? The life needed to be present
Mm-hmm.
to change things for generations to come. But abortion happened anyway. Pregnancy happens again. That same spirit, right? Knock, knock, knocking. Here comes another reading. The young lady chooses to abort again. By the third pregnancy, right, it was something that happened, and there was like a dream or something in the reading that basically said that this little ancestor who was trying to come back to change the whole, everything for those to come, not only impacted their immediate line, but the line of the cousins and the aunties and the others, right? That was an impactful story. It led to some inside conversations with me and my husband, with me and my best friend, who's a labor and delivery nurse, mind you, who also was against the overturning of Roe versus Wade. But we partook in this conversation where it was like, so we're the change agents in our family.
Yeah.
We're
Right.
the chain breakers. My husband, me, my best friend. What would have happened if we would have been aborted?
Right.
Where would the chain have been broken, right? And so my first statement was, there's no simple answer. There is no simple feeling to this. I believe that for one to bring forth a child, she has to feel somewhat whole. She has to feel somewhat capable, right? Because again, what happens in the mind of someone who, as a woman, is holding this life, feeling this movement, feeding this child, and you're breaking at the same time, there is
Mhm.
also a spiritual passing down of that trauma to
Right.
that child, right?
Mhm.
And so I believe that there's an accountability to be had as a woman who knows that you're not where you need to be. You know you're not right. You know you're not okay to be able to make a decision. But I don't think Roe versus Wade holds that decision. I think it removed the access. But our
Mm-hmm.
ancestors been taking care of this a long, long, long way ago. And
Mhm.
so I just think that because we are who we are as citizens in this country, we become angry. I was mad. I was livid
Mhm.
as a woman who has experienced that situation, a rape, right? We'll call it what it was, but who has also never had an abortion, who has had 8 miscarriages.
Mhm.
I was pissed
Right.
simply because of what I have seen happen to
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
women who have emotionally and spiritually been broken by their experience.
Right.
And that's what made you unique. That's what made you unique for us is because I knew that you had never had an abortion. I knew that you had had many miscarriages, and I knew that you had 3 daughters yourself. Now, just for clarity, I I do want you to know that I'm not insensitive to things like rape, sexual abuse, incest, and things like that. And I I do think that in those situations, what I'm talking about when I say abortion, I'm talking about simply for the sake of birth control, not
Mhm,
a woman has been raped, a woman
mhm,
incest and things like that, or even if it's going to be a detriment to the child or a detriment to the mother. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about for the sake of birth control.
mhm,
We are aborting these ancestors that are trying to make an attempt to come back. And karma collectively, that has to we have to see that that has to visit us at some point. So
mhm.
that was my
Mm-hmm.
my thoughts about it.
Mm-hmm.
And let me be clear. I didn't think that you were insensitive to it. I didn't. I think that your episode was exactly what it was about. And
Mm-hmm.
you all provided your thoughts and feelings about it from a masculine perspective. Even oh, I will. He fought foray over here with his. Well, I've been a woman in past lives, and I was just
Mhm.
I
But this
listened
is,
to that
but
roll
with
by.
that, what I was saying with that though, because and the thing about it, I want to tell people again how we came to this episode in particular, and the whole dedicated to this whole season to the divine feminine was from our beautiful conversation. And what I'm saying is that with having, I know I've been a woman in several of my past lives, but I want things to be set in a way to, if I come back as a woman, a man, transgender,
No.
gay, foreheads, I want to be things to be smooth no matter how I come. And if all
Mm-hmm.
of us take that mentality, then everything could be smooth. And then from there, well, one of the biggest things that I try to present, and I know Oshayun as well, is that the premise of the show is conversations about our spiritual journey
Mm-hmm.
and everyday life events from two people who just happen to be priests. So we try to talk about things from a position of this is what the spiritual tradition teaches based on what this is what I get from our understanding of the tradition. Because when I was a Christian, I used to talk out both sides of my mouth. The Bible say this, but I feel like this. It was a whole bunch of that. I mean, I know
Right.
the Bible say that, but man, they tripping. And it's like, oh, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, so do you stand on that or do you not stand on that? And that's why I
Mm-hmm.
made the comment in one of the episodes where O'Shea asked me the question, said, you had an abortion. If you knew what you knew now, would you do it all over again? And I said, despite what I said, this is what the EFI teaches, hell no. Mm-mm. Because I see how my life went since then. And I enjoy how my life went since then. And I don't know how that might shift, move, change things. So I'm cool with it. But
Mm-hmm.
I am gonna go back and have me another baby to bring down that ancestor. Because I don't want it to come through my sister or my cousin. I want it to be in my house. So we gonna definitely, and I hope it's a daughter. We gonna definitely work on bringing that down. I got a few more trips to take, and then you know I got a few
And
more
see,
trips to take.
let me go get with your lady and be like, girl, you run that. What trip he trying to take?
Now I got about 4, 5 international trips. I got to take.
Mm-hmm.
I know exactly, just like with Maverick, I know exactly when I want, the baby to be born, understanding, the ovulation works the way it works. But so that was it. And then the last piece for me, I was saying, like Baba says, if you are an aberration, they should never see you sweat. So I'm like, Roe v. Wade. Now, again, I know there's more people who aren't aberrations than those who are. I understand that,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I'm like, oh, that ain't nothing. All Spirit has done was put us on notice and say, hey, this is the energy and the way the world is shifting. If we get in touch with what we're supposed to get in touch with, oh, we got an answer to that. If it really
Absolutely.
comes down that you need to do that, oh, we got a heard for that. We ain't tripping. You ain't saying nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So what? Do what you want to do. We gonna work this out. We gonna figure this out. We got this. So that's what I was saying. This is time for us to now put on our cape, put on our
I
mask,
agree.
and go do our thing.
Absolutely. You said that, what I mean, you said it in a little, Shango kind of way where you was like,
Right.
well, where the class at? Where they teach this. This is a part of the divine feminine that you may not have access to. These
Mm-hmm.
conversations are absolutely being had. The conversation about how a yoni steam with the right herbs can make happen what needs to happen.
Absolutely.
The ingestion of a certain tea gonna make happen what needs to happen. But that is the beauty of the divine feminine. Like in all, I know you were just like, because I know when I want the baby to come. But the reality is, when you want to talk about Oshun and how all of these things move together, that's our business. That's where the woman has to now step forward. I also think that this is where the beauty in partnership. has to expand. And I think that this is
Mhm.
also where Oshun's business can flourish, right? Because there is my Awo as a woman. You have your Awo as a Baba. But then there is this Awo of the partners, right?
Right.
There is a sacred dance that you and your partner, you and your ladies take part in that I'll never know, right? That Baba Femi will never know. And we shouldn't because it's y'all's dance. And I think that this is where some of those other cultures, through the Kundalini and all of that stuff, through tantric sex, got it
Mhm.
right because there's this natural, all encompassing sexual experience that is look at you that is spiritual, right? And this is
Mhm.
where these things happen because I believe you a priest, right? Your women may not be, but they women.
Right.
They have a womb. They have a shade. They are portals. So you want to get it in with your lady, and you ain't trying to conceive? Okay, tap into some of that tantra sex. Tap
Mhm.
into some of that kundalini energy, right? And
Right.
you and her together can navigate and choose whether you trying to manifest and create in that moment or if you're not. And so to me, that's also the beauty of being in partnerships where we have access to this understanding and knowledge. And then it becomes, I'm gonna respect your awo as the divine masculine. And you're gonna expect my awo as the divine feminine. And some of those things are never going to be spoken about.
Mhm.
Some of
Mhm.
those things are going to stay that way. But when y'all come together into that spiritual space of creation, y'all can make anything move how y'all want it to move. And so when you talk about, like just on this grand scale of things, yes, as a people, right, especially as African American people, we have, man, so many issues, right, or in communities, and that healing, right, that whole like let's get it right this time so we can come back the next time it's one of those hard things because some of us are so far to the left, not even in religion, but just in a lack of understanding and awareness of self, right? That we just move any kind of way, and it's just like, my goodness, right? Make you think, these not the ancestors we try to bring back. But at the end of it all, from one of the most powerful things that our Oluwo has told us from the very beginning was that if God is perfection, then we are imperfection.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
that all of our existence is so that God can know itself while we have this experience in the process, which elevates us for when we do come back that next time. And
Right.
so even things as controversial as Roe versus Wade is a part of that experience.
Gosh.
Even things like the Holocaust are part of that experience. Even things like the tragic tragedy of Uvalde are part of that experience. And so I think that the benefit and the privilege that we have as priests is that we get to have this experience with a set of tools that's not privy to everybody.
Right.
We
Gosh.
get to have this experience with this understanding that we can now pass on to those generations, right? Because I'm with you, if I foray, I want us to have so much knowledge, understanding, and things be so good that my grandchildren don't have to go through the same things I went through. My
Gosh.
prayer all the time is that Ifa is the foundation of my family with no shame for the next 10 plus generations to come. You know what I mean? I want my children to write books about this. I want them to be teachers and facilitators about this and be able to pass it forward. This, despite what anybody else has to say, despite what anybody who was a staunch traditionalist has to say, I want them to not give two fucks about
Mhm.
what anybody has to say
Right.
about what they know
Gosh.
because they've lived it, because they've experienced it, right? So again, questions like Roe versus Wade and all of that, it's not simple. It's complicated, right? It's so complicated. Because guess what? I don't want the next Hitler to come forward
Mhm.
and
Right.
recap that experience. You can stay over there with all of that. The other
Right.
side to that is, I think, where women have to tap deep into this divine feminine energy is understanding that I'm a portal, yes, but I have a say in what comes through.
Mhm.
Because if I just decided that every intimate encounter with my husband was going to lead to a conception, then the question would be, well, where do I fit in this? And so I think that that's a part of our experience and where we have to develop a different type of relationship with the divine masculine is to understand, again, that ebb and flow energy, which again, that's Oshun's business. That's Oshun's energy all day is to understand that, yes, I'm a portal, but I have a life and an experience that I am required to live out too. And so a part of the work is to understand when to choose to let it come through, when not to choose to let it come through. If you're the woman who had to have her tubes tied, if you're the woman who had to have a hysterectomy, if you're the woman who is just you know, fertile Freddie, and you just want to have babies all the time, then be okay with that decision.
I
But
say.
as women, we have to know that we hold the power to decide what comes and what goes, and that there's a purpose in that coming and in that going, and in that we are still responsible for orchestrating the rest of this whole thing. And so I think it can feel heavy, and this is where the support of the divine masculine is required. This is where the understanding is required. This is where the compassion is required. Because we can't do it without the other. We need each other. I'm not trying to be the Virgin Mary over here with a
Right.
baby that don't come from. You know what I mean? I
Right.
want my husband to be a part of this experience, but if I don't know who I am, if I don't know the power that I hold as a woman, none of that matters,
I
Right.
say.
right? And so, as priests, you too are also obligated to help elevate your women
Mm-hmm.
who are not priests yet, right? This y'all have a responsibility to help elevate them, not to tell them what they know about themselves as a woman or what they don't know, but to just support them on their journey through compassion and understanding. And Oshun is gonna bless you always if you do
I say.
Nashe.
I say.
that. I'd say.
I say.
Nashe.
Oh, yeah. I gotta be a little petty. Uh, I
Come
need
on.
you to settle debate between O'Sheaun and myself.
Ah, here you go.
Okay. He said, "Oh, here you go. Okay, come on with it, Shango. Let's go."
So who did you disagree with more?
Ooh, listen. You talking about in this Roe versus Wade episode y'all had?
Yep.
Okay. You want me to be honest?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think if I really had to pick, it probably, oh man, because if I foray, you was so. I think you really hit me with that whole, if I go outside and ask them right now when they ovulate, and they ain't gonna know. I'm just like, see,
But that's
they
my
hit you.
experience. That's my
See,
experience.
but who are you asking? Because if you go ask a woman on that compound, I told you this. If you go ask one of these E5 women about their body, we gonna have an answer.
But that's
I
the
don't care if they
minority
pull
though.
out the app,
That's the
but you
minority.
know what? Brother? I don't know. I don't know because I know a lot of women
No, I'm
who be
saying the
like,
E5
girl.
women on that compound are the minority. But I'm saying
I
in my
mean, yes, but
experience,
there are a lot of women who not E5 women who know their body, right? And so I think I would have probably have disagreed with you a little bit more than I did him.
we're gonna
O'Sheaun was
figure it
very
out.
straightforward. I'm serious. He was straightforward. He was just like, listen, if you engaging in sex, you trying to bring down spirit, that's a wrap. Right? Like that's it. I think you who were your one story about your abortion situation, you were like, I'm open to it. I wouldn't even change that. But I do think that you were a little bit more comfortable speaking on these situations of the divine feminine that I just rolled my eyes at quite a few times because I was like, this dude you don't have no womb. So I'm trying to understand why you have such a strong opinion. But then I had to just giggle because that's just who you are. And I think that that's one of the beautiful things that make both of you who you are. I think that, uh, if I foray, you come from a very open, jovial, playful space, but you come with a lot of wisdom and knowledge, right?
Mhm.
Osheun, you the book all day. You about the business. The text said you probably go get a doctorate degree and have the best dissertation because you are an academic. That's just who you are. You that's just and so you gonna go
Mhm.
with the facts. But you still hold compassion for it. So if you have to pick, I would say I probably disagree with E54 just a little bit more because you was
Mm-hmm.
so broad,
We're
whereas
gonna
O'Shea was like,
delete
"No,
this
this
out.
it." But I think that going to conference and hearing that conversation by Chief Montana, it shifted a couple things for me. It really did. That idea of if I was aborted, who would be the change agent in my family?
Right.
Okay.
You know,
Right.
that
Mhm.
that kind of shifted. I just, like y'all said, I think that there's so many parts to it, right? Like it's not an easy answer
Right.
Right.
for most people. I totally agree with the fact that if you just out here having miscarriages for the sake of birth control,
Mhm.
then I just, and the sad part is I've met those people.
Mhm.
I have a family member who went through so many abortions that she ended up not being able to have children,
Mhm.
Wow.
right? Because abortions also damage the body. They damage the cervix, they weaken it. You can develop incompetent cervix, and then when you finally decide that you want to have it, it doesn't happen.
Right.
I know someone, who was told that they would never have kids, because of, just some trauma, and then got pregnant one time and then was like, I don't want this. I don't want a baby with this person. Aborted the baby and has never conceived again. And so,
Wow.
the more that I've grown spiritually, especially in these conversations around Roe versus Wade and just the divine feminine, I've thought about those people that I know personally and wondered, man, you know, what was that? What was that little ancestor who was trying to come in here to do?
Right.
That was your window, that was your opportunity, and it didn't happen. But I also think that in addition to thinking about the woman, we have to think about the other half of that seed, right? Because we also have some egun, um, spiritually, where the paternal side or the maternal side, one side of that may not be in the best, in the best space, may not bring forward the best energy. And so, I think that there again, it's not simple, right? It's so complex. I remember when I was pregnant with Anaya, and Baba called to give me my reading. And, he used to leave it as a recording so you could just go back and get it.
Right.
And Savali answered the phone and I said, "Oh, Baba, I'm so sorry. Let me hang up." He was like, "What's going on with that pregnancy?" And I was like, a couple of little things, but, nothing major. The complications I was having showed up in my reading. And he was like, "Well, I don't know how else to say this, but there's a war in heaven. Your ancestors are headbutting and Anaya's in the middle. And so we got to do, I think the elbow was a foreleg, because we need to try to appease these forces, because I had some negative ancestors that didn't want this to move for me, right? And so
Mhm.
again,
Mhm.
it's complicated. You know what I'm saying? It's
Right.
not as simple. So, yes, it's an Egun that wants to return, but it's you got two Egun, you got two energies. You know what I'm saying? Bringing forth the energy off the one side, and it just can get. I think it can get grimy.
Mhm.
But
Right.
this is why we have E5, right? This is why we have these tools, because we can do the work, right? And
Mhm.
it's one cast at a time.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But we really, really, really enjoyed you. We really, really appreciate
Mm.
you coming on after disagreeing with Fafore so much.
See, that
Coming
was
on.
that was a trap question, but I mean,
I told him, I say, Ia might come on if you ain't here. If you ain't here and it's just me, then Ia will probably come on.
He said after
Uh,
I said that about him, he took my comment and tried to reverse it on me. But this is
uh,
why we had to have you
mhm.
specifically.
Absolutely.
Specifically.
We we appreciate the perspective. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we here for, to provide a perspective. And if the whole world disagreed with us about this topic, at least the whole world was having a conversation about it.
Hmm.
And
I
that was
say,
the important part. So
Right.
I say, but it truly is an honor, just to be asked to be a part of this. I think what y'all are doing is good. Controversy sparks thought, and so sometimes some of the topics may be something that is, difficult for somebody. And the
right,
reality is, in most cases, if it feels difficult, it's personal in some way. And it's something that
absolutely
we haven't dealt with. When y'all did Roe versus Wade, that was personal for me.
right,
Hmm.
That's why it was so many pinpricks, but it also created some thought. And so I think that your mission was absolutely accomplished, to create a space where people can have conversations, even if they're not with you. If it's at the dinner table, if it's on the drive to the store, the conversations are being had. And so, I am honored to have been asked, and I wish you all continued success, on the Who Made Y'all Priest podcast. And
Thank you so
y'all thank
much.
you.
Thank you so
I
much. And
say,
I would say I hope that y'all enjoyed this episode, but I know y'all gonna enjoy this
Right.
episode.
I
I
say,
mean, it was everything that me and O'Shea knew was gonna be. That's why we specifically had to have you on
oh,
this season.
Mhm.
I
Like,
say, I
you
say,
showed up and showed out. You know what I'm saying? So we greatly appreciate it. And family, we hope that, you learned a lot from this podcast episode. We hope that you continue not only the conversation about abortion, but just any conversation, especially those hard to have conversations, those conversations that can be triggering. We hope that you really have those conversations with friends, family, strangers, colleagues, and the whole nine. And we're going to keep bringing these episodes, keep bringing this information to you so that you can go on this journey with us. Like I said, this is something that O'Shane and I, we don't have figured out, but we weren't afraid to have the conversation. And as a result of the conversation, we're going to continue to learn and grow and evolve, and hope the same for you guys. So again, come check us out next week as we continue down this spiritual journey. Uh,
Subscribe.
Subscribe. Yeah,
I
subscribe,
say.
like, and share. And as always, life's a journey. Don't forget the map. Peace.